Hello. I hope everyone can listen properly. And we started Go Kick the World in the last class. And now we are going to continue. So, Go Kick the World is written by Mr. Subrato Bakshi. And in the first class, when we started the lesson, we started this entire account. I told you who Mr. Bakshi is and how he belongs to a very humble background and how he came out of those poor circumstances and how he had inculcated the values from his parents, how small incidents have been so important and they have been so carefully written in this lesson, which is actually his speech that he delivered at IIM Bangalore in the year 2006. He delivered this speech, and in this speech, he actually tells us how, as a child, he was greatly influenced by his parents and the atmosphere and the people around him. So let us see the lesson. I think I ended on page number 18 from your textbook. Here, uh, my mother began developing a cataract in her eyes when I was very small. At that time, the eldest among my brothers got a teaching job at the university in Bhubaneswar and had to prepare for the civil services examination. So it was decided that my mother would move to cook for him and as for appendage, as her company, as for someone who would accompany her and who would help her out, I had to move too. So I also went with my mother because one of my brothers had to appear for an examination in Bhubaneswar and we both also went with him. For the first time in my life, I saw electricity in homes and water coming out of of a tap. It was around 1965 and the country was going to war with Pakistan. My mother was having problems reading and in any case, being Bengali, she did not know the Oriya script. So, in addition to my daily course, my job was to read her the local newspaper end to end. So, this is how, because my mother had a cataract in her eyes, she could not, gradually she had lost her eyesight. So, I had to help her know the news of the world. So, I would read the newspaper. And see, this habit of reading the newspaper to the mother every day, he remembers this with so much of love and so much of respect for the mother because he says that end to end I used to read the newspaper that created in me a sense of connectedness with a larger world. Right? This very habit of reading the newspaper before her created in me a sense of connectedness with a larger world. For the whole world, I had now got this sense of connectedness. I was as if this very sense of being connected not just to yourself and your family members, but to the whole world. This itself is a great feeling. So now I had this feeling because I used to read newspaper to my mother. Uh, I felt that sorry. For the first time in my life, I saw electricity in homes and water coming out of a tap. It was around 1965 when the country was going to war with Pakistan. My mother was having problems reading, and in any case, being Bengali, she did not know the Oriya script. So, in addition to my daily course, my job was to read her the local newspaper end to end. That created in me a sense of connectedness with the larger world. I began taking interest in many different things. While reading out news about the war, I felt that I was fighting the war myself. She and I discussed the daily news and built a bond with a larger universe. In it, we became part of a larger reality. Till date, I measure my success in terms of that sense of larger connectedness. So even today, as a Mr. Subrato Bakshi, as a great leader and as a great businessman and as a great inspirer, He believed that even today I feel that whatever I have learned and whatever I have got today, that is in many ways actually I would in many ways credit that to the larger connectedness that I developed during that time with my mother, with the whole world. Meanwhile the war raged and India was fighting on both fronts. Lal Bahadur Shastri, the then time Prime Minister, coined the term Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan and galvanized the nation into patriotic fervor. Other than reading out the newspaper to my mother, I had no clue about how I could be part of the action. So after reading her the newspaper every day, I would land up near the university's water tank, which served the community. I would spend hours under it, imagining that there could be spies who would come to poison the water and I had to watch for them. So see, the kind of news I used to read every day in the newspaper before my mother, I learned how spies would work, how they would operate in the nation, and all these things actually filled my mind with so many of the new things, so many of the imaginations. So unfortunately for me, the spy that war ignored the sleepy town of Bhubaneswar and I never got a chance to catch one in action yet. That act unlocked my imagination. So as a child, he must have read about the spies in the various countries because the war was going on at that time. So this actually made him learn so many things. And that act unlocked my imagination. Imagination is everything. If we can imagine a future, we can create it. If we can create that future, others will live in it. That is the essence of success. See, essence of success. Success is not something materialistic, right? Something, not just something that can be bought with money. Success is something beyond money and property and materialism. And all these things, all these small things, actually are inculcated in his childhood experiences. How he must have learned all these things. That if we can imagine a future, we can create it. If we can create that future, others will live in it. So, before we do anything else, we should be able to imagine. And those imaginations were rooted in my mind by being with my parents. My mother made me learn what imagination is. Over the next few years, my mother's eyesight dimmed, but in me, she created a vision with which I continue to see the world, and I sense through my eyes she was seeing too. Right? So gradually she lost her eyesight because she had this cataract in her eye. So gradually she could not see at all now. But then she created a larger vision in me. Vision, a drashti. Your ability to see beyond what is happening now. So a vision with which I continue to see the world and I can she also used to see the world with my eyes, by those visions that she had created in me. I remember when she returned after her operation and she saw my face clearly for the first time. She was astonished. She said, "Oh my God, I did not know you were so fat." I remained mighty pleased with that adultation even till date. Within weeks of getting her sight back, she developed a corneal ulcer and overnight became blind in both eyes. That was 1969. She died in 2006. In all those 32 years of living with blindness, she never complained about her face, even once. See, look at the greatness with which she must have lived the rest of her life. The 32 years of living with blindness, she developed that corneal ulcer, and there was because of that she became blind in both the eyes. And in 2002 she died. But in those 32 years she lived with blindness, but never did she complain even once for the blindness. Curious to know what she saw with blind eyes, I asked her once if she sees darkness. She replied, "No, I do not see darkness. I only see light, even with my eyes closed." Look at the positivity and optimism with which this lady must be living her life. Because she said, "I don't see darkness. I just see light with my eyes, even the closed eyes." Even if my eyes are closed, I can see the light. Until she was 80 years of age, she did her morning yoga every day, swept her own room, and washed her own clothes. To me, success is about the sense of independence. It is about not seeing the world but seeing the light. So, this very definition of success was taught to me, to Mr. Bakshi, as a child by his mother, by a mother who had gone blind but who did not consider it as a fate. Rather, she never thought that she was blind. Rather, she always thought that she was very lucky. Until she was 80 years of age, 80 years of age, she did her morning yoga every day, and she used to sweep her own room, and she used to wash her clothes. So this actually taught me a great lesson that success is about the sense of independence. It is about not seeing the world but seeing the light. So just like her, we all do have certain misfortunes in our life. But then life is not about counting those unfortunate acts or the unfortunate things in our life. Rather, life is about celebrating the light in the world. The world has to offer both light and darkness. Then it is upon us to accept what is best for us. Right? Let us continue. Over the many intervening years, I grew up, studied and joined the industry and began to carve my life's own journey. I hope you guys are making notes of the lessons that he learned with his mother, with his parents while he was a child. So try to keep a notebook with yourself in which you can take a note of the lessons, the wisdom that we learned from the childhood experiences. Okay. Over the many intervening years, I grew up, studied, joined the industry and began to carve my life's own journey. I began my life as a clerk in government office and went on to become a management trainee with the DCM group and eventually found my life's calling with the IT industry when fourth generation computers came to India in 1981. Life took me places. I worked with outstanding people, challenging assignments and traveled all over the world. So this is something about his own life. In 1992, while I was posted in the US, I learned that my father, living a retired life with my eldest brother, had suffered a third-degree burn injury and was admitted in the Safdarjung, sorry, yes, Safdarjung Hospital in Delhi. I flew back to attend to him. He remained for a few days in critical state, bandaged from neck to toe. The Safdarjung Hospital is a cockroach infested, dirty, inhuman place. So it's a very dirty place, this hospital was. The overworked, under-resourced sisters in the burn ward are both victims and perpetrators of dehumanized life at its worst. So the sisters, the nurses, by sisters we mean nurses who used to work there, they had to work over there. Like this was their fate. So they had to live this dehumanized life at its worst. One morning, while attending to my father, I realized that the blood bottle was empty, and fearing that air would go into his veins, I asked the attending nurse to change it. She bluntly told me to do it myself. In that horrible theater of death, I was in pain and frustration and anger. Finally, when she relented and came, my father opened his eyes and murmured to her, "Why have you not gone home yet?" Here was a man on his deathbed, but more concerned about the overworked nurse than his own state. I was stunned at his stoic self, patient person. See, he was burnt from neck to toe. He was, entire body was burnt, and he was hospitalized in a place which was very dirty, cockroach infected, dirty place where the nurses also in the burn ward, the nurses also have to work very hard, and they are also very tired seeing the pain of the patients all day. So one morning there was the blood had finished in the bottle. So I went to tell the nurse to change it, and she was told she must be very tired from the work. So he bluntly told me to do it myself. In that horrible theater of death, I was in pain and frustration and anger, but my father was not. Rather, he told the nurse, "Why have you not gone home yet?" So I was surprised to see a man on his deathbed, still concerned about the overworked nurse, then his own state. And I was stunned at his stoic self. I was stunned that someone can be so patient, even in his deathbed. He can be concerned about the nurse's work. That I learned that there is no limit to how concerned you can be for another human being and what the limit of inclusion is you can create. So that was the moment when my father showed concern for the nurse. I learned that this can also be a life of a person who can be so concerned about other human beings. My father died the next day. He was a man whose success was defined by his principles, his frugality, his universalism, and his sense of inclusion. Sense of inclusion. To include means to accept, and inclusion means acceptance. So this is a man who was, even in his deathbed, this man was ready to think of others. This very sense of inclusion, this universalism, these principles of his father always affected him and always, taught him how to live life. Above all, he taught me that success is your ability to rise above your discomfort, whatever may be your current state. Above all, he taught me that success is your ability to rise above above your discomfort, whatever may be your current state. You can, if you want, raise your consciousness above your immediate surroundings. Success is not about building material comfort, the transistor that he never could buy, the mimetic continuity of his ideals that grew beyond the smallness of an ill-paid, unrecognized government servant's world. So, mimetic meaning relating to an element of culture or system of behavior passed from one individual to another by imitation or other non-genetic means. So, this high ideals that he was having, that was actually beyond the smallness of his income. He was a government servant, unrecognized government servant, but the kind of existence that he was having and the kind of definition of success he was having was so huge that it was beyond those small, meager incomes that he was having. So even as a meager government servant, he lived a life that could affect Mr. Bakshi, Mr. Subrata Bakshi, and even today he looks at his father as a great person. My father was a fervent believer in the British Raj. He sincerely doubted the capability of the post-independence Indian political parties to govern the country. To him, the lowering of the Union Jack was a sad event. My mother was the exact opposite. When Subhash Bose quit the Indian National Congress and came to Dhaka, my mother, then a schoolgirl, garlanded him. She learned to spin khadi and joined an underground movement that trained her in using daggers and swords. Consequently, our household saw diversity in the political outlook of the day. On major issues concerning the world, the old man and the old lady had differing opinions. So, though they were not educated much, they did not have, uh, you know, high-profile education, still they had their own views. And the old man and the old lady meet. My father and my mother had opposing views often, and they used to have differing opinions, and they must be discussing the major events of the world. In them, we learned the power of disagreement. See, so this also I learned from my father, the power of disagreement, of dialogue, and the essence of living with diversity in thinking. So my father and my mother used to have differing opinions often, and still they used to live in the same house, and still they used to have discussions. So from them we learned the power of disagreement, of dialogue, and the essence of living with diversity in thinking. So success is not about the ability to create a definitive dogmatic end state. It is about the unfolding of thought processes, of dialogue and continuing. 2 years back, at the age of 82, mother had a paralytic stroke and was lying in a government hospital in Bhubaneswar. I flew down from the US, where I was serving my second stint, to see her. I spent 2 weeks with her in the hospital as she remained in a paralytic state. She was neither getting better nor moving on. Eventually, I had to return to work. While leaving her behind, I kissed her face in that paralytic state and a garbled voice, garbled, confused, the voice that was not coming clearly. In that paralytic state and garbled voice, she said, "Why are you kissing me? Go kiss the world." See, these are her last words. She's lying on the deathbed, and these are her last words. She's saying, "Why are you kissing me? Go kiss the world." A river was nearing its journey at the confluence of life and death. This woman who came to India as a refugee, raised by a widowed mother, no more educated than high school, married to an anonymous government servant whose last salary was rupees 300, robbed of her eyesight by fate and crowned by adversity, was telling me to go and fix the world. So this is a woman who was not Indian. She must have come from Bangladesh. We have seen this. She was raised by a widow. She was not educated enough. He was married to an anonymous government servant who was robbed of her eyesight by fate and was crowned by adversity. She was telling me lying on her deathbed, she was telling the son to go and fix the world. So this is all about hope and positivity. Success to me is about vision. See, throughout the lesson, throughout the speech, the writer has talked about success. The various layers of success, the various sides of success that he learned from his parents. This is, this is what he tells us. It is the ability to rise above the immediacy of pain. It is about imagination. It is about sensitivity to small people. It is about building inclusion. It is about connectedness to a larger world existence. It is about personal tenacity. The ability to uh, grip something firmly. It is about giving back more to life than we take out of it. It is about creating extraordinary success with ordinary life. So all these things I learned from my parents. Thank you very much. I wish you good luck and Godspeed. Go save the world. So with these words, Mr. Subrato Bakshi ends his speech. So as we saw in the entire speech, the lesson is about the article is about how he lived and learned a lot from his parents. The family values that he inculcated, the values of simplicity, the values of commitment, of contentment, of the ability to learn from the life lessons, with strong principles and moral values. All these things he learned from the personal incidents, the simple nuggets of wisdom that he learned from his parents. All the small things were so inspiring to him, motivating to him. His parents, though were not educated much, they have always influenced him in some or the other way. So Bhakti actually urges the readers to see the potential within themselves and work on their dormant strengths to seek all the wonderful things they are destined to achieve. And he actually ends the speech by saying, "Go save the world." So, the lesson is all about the writer's own understanding, his own definition of success, and the feelings of learning from parents, even from the humble background. He has learned a lot, but the inspiration and the positivity and the optimism that the writer learns from his parents, that is so surprising, that is so pleasant to see, that we also feel like learning a lot. So here we end the lesson.